Hello, I'm Devin Davis. I run a business called Will Make the Boat Go Faster. My background, I've been doing this for 12 years. Before that, I was working in other training or consulting businesses. But before that, I was a sportsman. I was a rower. I rowed because I couldn't really do anything else, which is why most people row if you're tall, and then rowing's a good option. It doesn't involve missing a ball with a bat, so I did that. I competed at 6 World Championships and 3 Olympic Games. And then after I retired from competing, I stayed involved in the Olympic movement, and I went to another 3 Olympic Games as part of the leadership team and support team. So that was in Beijing 2008, London 2012, and Rio in 2016. And in the run up to the London Olympics, I actually worked full time for Team GB for the best part of 2 years. Yeah, so that's kind of my background and who I am. I know, and I wrote a book called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster. Actually, my business is called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster. Those are linked.
Were you the first person to coin that phrase? Sort of, will it make the boat go faster?
No, I mean, I think, no, the phrase has been around, and you can't actually copyright a phrase. I'm sure people over the centuries have, talked about their galleon and said, can we make our boat go faster? So I can't be the first person to use the phrase. In our crew, we talked about it the whole time. So the first 7 years I was in the rowing team, we did pretty badly. I made finals and came last in finals at World Championships or Olympics, or we didn't make finals. And then 2 years before the Sydney Olympics, we went through a whole change and we started being far more focused and challenging and all sorts of other stuff. And we talked about making the boat go faster the whole time. And we challenged everything based on boat speed as to what we should do, what we shouldn't do, how we should do it, how we shouldn't do it. It was all based on the question, will it make the boat go faster? So I then kind of came away and wrote a book. I started doing speeches around will it make the boat go faster, wrote a book called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster. I now have a business called Will It Make the Boat Go Faster. I'm not very imaginative with names. Maybe that's part of the problem. But that's that. So if you can own the phrase, I'd say I'm pretty close to owning it. But I clearly didn't invent it.
I think I heard you say we weren't very good for 5 years.
Yeah, more like 7 years.
but like what's stained you being not very good for 7? Because 7 years is a long time to
lose.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. Was this your full-time thing? You weren't like doing it part-time. This was your job full-time, and for 7 years you weren't as good as you could be.
It kind of wasn't necessarily a job because I didn't really get paid to do it. So
right.
So at school I did kind of pretty well. At school I won a whole lot of stuff and it was fun. And I went to the Junior World Championships and kind of just missed out on a medal. And next year at university I went to the under-23 World Championships and actually came second, which was good. And then
is that was in a team or as an individual?
That was in a team. So all crew boats.
Right.
And the next year, coach said to me, the British rowing coach said, you've got a chance to get to the Olympics. Do you want to go to the Olympics or do you want to study? So I dropped out of university. And from then on, I was a full-time athlete, but we didn't get paid. I mean, I got, for the first 6 years, I think I got £5,200 a year, which didn't cover the training camps, the cost of getting to World Championships or anything else. So I worked on the side, coaching rowing, cleaning swimming pools, doing a bit of labouring, whatever I could to earn enough money to put the enormous amount of food that I needed on the table and to hopefully pay for petrol so I could get down to training. And if not, I hitched or I cycled 25 miles each way. And for 7 years, I lost every single race I did. At World Championships and Olympics, I came fifth a couple of times in a different boat, but fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth is how I did. And there are only 6 boats in a final, so coming sixth in a final isn't very good. And meanwhile, there were people in the team who are winning everything, and I did exactly the same training as them. There were years where I did more training than Steve Redgrave and Matt Kenseth, and I still lost everything. I just wasn't as good as them. I'm making it sound like I'm really not very smart here.
Well, you're 10 out of 10 for perseverance.
Yeah, my perseverance was pretty good. I was dedicated, I was motivated, I worked hard, I persevered, and kind of finally, after World Championships in 2 years before the Sydney Olympics, and World Championships in Germany. And to be fair, our crew coach, a guy called Martin McElroy, the previous year had been trying to get us to change. He'd been trying to get us to do things differently, but we were going, you've never coached anyone to Olympics before. Why would we possibly do what you want to do and change? Where we can keep doing what the head coach, who by that point had coached people to win Olympic gold medals at 6 different Olympics, why wouldn't we keep doing what he's doing? He's amazing. Let's keep doing the same thing. And after losing a game, finally we went, this clearly isn't working. Maybe, Martin, we need to have a go at whatever it is you're suggesting. And we went through a massive change that led to us going from 7th in 98, 2nd in 99, winning the Olympics in 2000.
Fab. You said you looked at everything through the will it make the boat go faster lens. And was that his change, or was he changing something else about the way in which you trained?
The chief coach, he coached people to win gold medals at 11 different Olympic games. He was quite good. I don't think anyone else in the world has coached anyone to win at 11 different Olympic games. He was good. But it didn't seem to work for people like me. So Martin's approach was going, how do you get us to take more ownership? How do we get more alignment? How do we make sure that what we're doing is of better quality? How do we make sure that we are learning faster than everybody else in the world? Because we're not going to win just by outworking people.
Mm-hmm.
We need to actually be technically the best crew in the world. We need to be the most resilient crew. We need to be the most cohesive unit. And physiologically, we need to be as good as we can be. How do we transform this bunch of people who don't necessarily trust each other that much, who are willing to work hard, don't necessarily row that well, to be, say, technically the best crew and the most cohesive unit, so that if you add up the sum of the parts, you get far more than you should do. How do we do that? And we set on a journey to do that.
The program you'd been on with the head coach had got you to 6th many times, which is not shabby. It's not as if there are plenty of other people who must have been rowing against you who didn't get to the finals in these events. And, but this was that sounds like it's that sort of trust and cohesion sounds like it's more mental than physical.
Yeah. You said it's not shabby. It depends on expectations. So there was actually one guy who I rowed with in 98 when we came 7th again, who I kind of didn't really get it why. I just didn't trust him, frankly. I didn't get it why he cut every corner he could, why he did the bare minimum to get by. And the fact was, his expectation was he wanted to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And we were kind of on track to qualify for the Olympics, so what he was doing was fine. That was not my expectation. I had friends who were winning Olympic gold medals, who were world champions multiple times, and that's what I wanted to do. That was what my expectation was. So, what's shabby or not is based on expectations, on, frankly, our own expectations. And so we, with Martin's guidance, we got clear on what our expectations were. And we actually, with 9 people, but there were 70 people who were involved in this project. We got clear on expectations, and we said we wanted to be a gold medal winning team, not me being Olympic champion, because that's different.
Yeah,
that's about me.
Uh-huh.
And we were going, or not being Olympic champions. That's 9 people, but we had 70 people on this program. So we spoke about, we wanted to be a gold medal winning team. We looked at stuff differently. We went, rather than just doing the same training we'd done before, in the same way. And in sport, people talk about junk miles, where you just do the miles. You go, I'm doing the distance, I'm doing it at the right heart rate, therefore it's good enough. We went, no, that's not good enough. What do we want to achieve from this next mile we're going to do specifically? And that's not about heart rate, it's not about calorie output, what output, it's about going, what are the other things I want to achieve from this? And am I clear about how I'm going to go about doing it? And then am I reviewing how I did afterwards, so I can make sure the next kilometre or the next mile is better quality and better served to help us be a gold medal winning team. So it's just a kind of different mindset.
The guy who wanted to get to the Olympics but didn't have an aspiration to be on a gold medal winning team, did he end up off the team, or did he end up changing his perspective?
He changed his perspective and he ended up as Olympic champion.
Okay. It's the type of thing that I see all the time in business is that individuals don't share their expectations with one another. And the sense of frustration that you describe is evident all the time. But it's not a surprise because you haven't had you haven't had the conversation. So I want to win gold medal and you just seem to turn up all the time and cut the fucking corner. Like, but there's no conversation to be had, so they will never know that you're frustrated and there's never an alignment.
Or they know you're frustrated, but that's because you're an asshole.
Because that's their perception of you.
Yeah. Why are you being so demanding? This is totally unnecessary. What you're saying and doing totally unnecessary. You don't have to behave. So much of it is about shared expectations. If we actually had a common understanding of what we're trying to do and what it means to us and what we're willing to do, it kind of gives us an even playing field.
Yes, and it's interesting because I'd done some work last year with a client and it hadn't worked out. And so I went looking for to try and get an understanding of why it hadn't worked out. The thing I think which is there in the research is, companies will have purpose, but teams also need to have a reason and a clarity. And so what is it that Martin taught you to do that you now do with your clients around helping? How do you help a team get clarity on purpose?
So we have some very deliberate conversations about clarity, about actually what are you set up to do? What do you actually want to achieve as a team? And if you think about a classic simple leadership team where you might have the sales director going, sales is most important, and the ops person is going, it's about quality of delivery, and the finance person is about going profit. They've all got different expectations. So it's all right for the salesperson to sell a whole load of stuff that ops simply can't deliver. And, it's a kind of very basic, example. But presumably what's most important for a leadership team should be the health and state of the business rather than going my department or my team. And,
yes.
And being able to step back and go, what are you all here to do? What is it that you can only do together? And, what does good look like? We help teams have conversations around what they are there to do and how they will measure success. What will it look like? How will they know? And then have conversations about going, therefore, how do we need to interact together? What sort of conversations do we need to have? And there's some skills stuff that goes in there about being able to communicate more clearly. And there's a whole lot of mindset stuff about where we put ourselves in the grand scheme of things compared to the people we're working with or talking to, or everything else.
Yes, I think often about that example you gave. It's like 7-year-olds playing football. Jimmy comes off and says he scored 2 goals, but the team lose 5-2, right? And it's because I think that to get promoted in sales, to take the sales example, you have to be good at sales. You go sales manager, sales director, chief revenue officer, but you've never learned to collaborate because collaboration was never something you needed to do to be promoted. And so now you're at the top. You think your team is your function. And the worst example I had was with a company that then went bust, where the sales guy said, there's no need to sell it because they can't deliver it. And the delivery guy goes, there's no need to work out how to deliver it because they're never going to sell it. But they never solved the problem, and then they went bust 6 months later. It's just happens all the time.
And very often a sales team, it's kind of a bit of an oxymoron term because it's not really a team. I mean, there are sales teams where sales is a team sport. There are all sorts of organizations where salespeople collaborate really well. And then there are the sales teams where you have a group of salespeople who are competing against each other the whole time, and they've got no intention of sharing anything with each other. So, how teams are set up, how people are rewarded, how people are recognized, all of that is part of the structure. Or, working with some big businesses where you've got the executive committee where, it's a regulated meeting. The only time they get together is in their exco meetings. It's regulated from banking or, whatever other organization. And it's just not actually a team conversation because they can't do that. Therefore, they're wanting to be a team, but they haven't got the systems or the structure in place to be a team. So there are all sorts of things that get in the way that generally aren't that difficult to solve.
The other thing that strikes me as being different between sports teams and leadership teams is you're in the boat with other rowers. They all have to be good enough to be in the boat. Whereas if you take an executive team, there are often people on the executive team who aren't good enough.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wonder, with lots of sports teams, I wonder if you were to ask people, is everybody good enough to be in the team? You'll get a whole lot of people going, they're not.
I suppose I'm thinking about professional as opposed to amateur teams I've played with. We know Johnny's not very good, so we're going to put him on the wing, right? Don't pass to him. Don't expect him to tackle anybody, but otherwise we turn up with 14.
But with professional teams, there's also that variability.
Yeah.
And, you've got the people who are on and off the bench the whole time, who are in and out of the squad the whole time. Or the other end of it, you've got the prima donnas who actually, it's all about them. It's not about the team at all. It's all about them. They want to be the person who's sliding across the pitch on their knees and pushing their teammates away so they can have the kind of full frontal pictures. There are...
You described the head of sales in many companies, yeah.
In most teams, there are different roles that are played and different levels of skill, different levels of ambition. Another thing in sport, people go, but everybody's really committed, and in business, people not. But I think I was always pretty motivated and driven in what I've rowed. I think I worked pretty damn hard, and I don't remember people having a go at me for lack of commitment. One of the guys who sat a couple of seats in front of me in the boat in Sydney, he did about an hour and a half of trunk and core stability work, an hour and a half every single morning before training. So when we were up at 5:30 for the Olympic final, he had already done an hour and a half of work. I wasn't that committed. So there are always also levels of, what people can actually give and what people are actually willing to give. So, teams are teams. We're all different people. So how do you get with the people you've got? How do you get them to give what they can give and be as good as they can doing that?
Yeah. And it then has to be in the context of the purpose that the team agrees to.
Yes.
Right. So, once we have the purpose, then we can say, do we have the right team? Do we have the right people? Do we have the right people in the boat?
Yes. And knowing that people will give different things based on capability and life and everything else.
In terms of your process, once you've gone through and we've got the purpose, what are some of the ways in which you facilitate these conversations that need to be had?
What we want people to do, we want people to talk, and we can provide structure around making it easier to have the right kind of conversations.
Is it constructive conflict that often that's the way I describe it to clients. And sometimes the fact that I'm using the word conflict terrifies the shit out of people.
So I think teams need to have constructive conflict, that you need to be able to disagree with each other openly and then reach an agreement.
Yeah.
So whether that happens with us or whether that happens when they're, back doing something else, I mean, it kind of depends. But we need people to be able to have different points of view and be able to challenge each other and have, meaningful conversations where there is disagreement, so long as you can then find a way to go, right, with this data, with this information, how do we then get aligned going forward? So, constructive conflict, yes, is part of what a high-performing team should be able to do.
I just want to pick your brains a bit again about what you did differently. So what are some of the things that you then, in the team, that practical things that you did that made the boat go faster that you weren't doing before?
Before going out for a session, we had a far, far greater amount of clarity about what we were trying to achieve in that session. Okay. Rather than saying it's 20 kilometers at 18 strokes a minute at a heart rate of 150 or whatever, we then go, and what we want to achieve by doing that is the technical thing that I am working on, the technical thing that each individual and as a crew we are trying to do is. So there was far greater clarity for each and every session that we did. We reviewed every session to go, right, we were trying to do this. How did we actually do? And what does that mean that we need to do differently for the next session we have, whether that be tomorrow or when we replicate this session in a week's time, or this race in a month's time or a year's time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So practically, we had more clarity so we could work on the detail far better and we could review it and learn better.
And so within that, you are sharing with your colleagues, there is a technical skill that you're trying to develop, right? Which today, because you're working on it, might mean that you're consciously incompetent about something that might have an impact on your stroke rate or your error rate or something. And so if you don't tell them, they might think you're a dickhead. If you do tell them, then maybe they've got some input for you, or they're going to,
Exactly.
at least they have an understanding of your intent.
As a crew, if we're all working on one part of the stroke, we've all got to be clear which part of the stroke we're working on.
Yeah.
And individually, if I'm trying to stop my head being so floppy or whatever, then, because if in an 8, if you change one thing, the whole thing changes. So being aware and working on the same thing at the same time, being able to, if somebody knows that I'm working on this particular thing, for them to be able to either give me a bit of a slack because other things are going to suffer, or to give me feedback on it. I mean, that's useful.
Yeah. Certainly in a corporate setting, when you have a lack of trust, you have people who go, well, I'm not prepared to tell them I'm working on something. I have to show up every day and appear to be perfect because, otherwise I leave myself vulnerable, and I don't want to turn up and be vulnerable.
And our reviews at the end of sessions would be based broadly around 3 questions. Firstly, what worked well, which is what did we do well? What did I do well? What worked well? Second question, what wasn't so good? What didn't we do quite so well? And the third question, what are we going to do better next time? So within a meeting, to be able to go, I think actually it was a really great quality conversation. The prep that was done was really useful. And the fact that everyone had read it, full marks, really good. What wasn't so good, I got distracted at this point because I started thinking about, and that meant we had to do a bit of what I've been working on, if everybody knows that actually I'm trying to ask better questions at the moment, because that's a really good way of opening up debate, then people can give me some feedback at the end again. You did a really good job, or that question there just totally took us off track. It was crap. That's, if I trust the people in the room. So we had a view that if I saw something that wasn't, or heard something that wasn't as good as it could be, and I chose to say nothing and walk past it, I was actually making a conscious choice to help us lose.
Yep.
The only way we were going to win was if we were as good as we could possibly be. We weren't like some of the top people in the team who could win on a bad day. We were going to win on our very best day. We needed to be as good as we could in every way to be capable of winning. And we all knew that. So therefore, why would I possibly not help somebody improve? And so often we see something and we go, yeah, it'd be a bit uncomfortable if I say something, and they might be a bit upset. So therefore, it's better for me to say nothing. Bollocks. If you know I want to be good at my job, if you know I want to be a good facilitator, a good managing director, a good salesperson, a good finance director, why would you not help me? Why would you not give me a bit more data, a bit more input, about what you've seen or what you've heard? And then I can go, oh, that's a really good point, or I don't think that's right. Why would you choose not to help me be good when you know that's what I want to be?
I see that all the time. I ask, often when I've got a big group, I ask people, how many of you would tell me I had spinach in my teeth, which feels like quite a low bar, right? And always, there's a number of people in the room who go, I'm not going to tell you. Like, no. And then I say, well, what if my flies are down? And it drops to about half. Half the room are like, no, not. And then I say, well, what if I have BO or bad breath? And it's like most people in the room are like, I'm not going to have that conversation with you. And it's like, I think that last one is like work. Work, pointing out a poor performance or something you could do better is not the spinach in your teeth thing. It's the bad breath thing. It's like, oh, I feel uncomfortable about bringing this up with you, and therefore I'm going to do nothing, even though you can't do anything unless I tell you. Do you think that's one of the fundamental differences between a high-performing team and a...
Yes.
Is that the team have to get into that? We're prepared to be uncomfortable for the team.
We're prepared to help each other be as good as we can be.
Yeah.
We've set a clear goal, a clear direction. We want to achieve whatever, and therefore we've got to help each other. We've got to be willing to help each other. And if you've got some information that you think might help me, share it. And we don't have to agree with all the feedback we get, but at least we've got a different point of view.
What's the challenge that when you're working with a client comes up and you go, oh God, this one's hard. I hate this one.
Yeah, there are various different scenarios that are kind of harder than others. So family businesses, they're interesting.
That comes back to my observation about, are the people good enough to be on the team? The whole conflict avoidance thing comes up.
Yeah, so there's conflict avoidance bit, there's the willingness to hand over. We worked for some time with a business. They kind of did various financial service and customer service type things. And there were two sons who were kind of in their 40s who had been running it was a big, £1 billion plus business. They've been running big divisions. And the dad in his early 80s kept saying he would hand over. And then he would come back from a weekend in New York and went, I spent 20 million on a new business. And sons go, what the hell? And the dad would sit around the board with him and go, yeah, I'm definitely, I'm overdue, boys. And it's doing that. And family businesses are really fun and really challenging.
Yeah.
So unless the team leader, the chief exec, the MD, whoever she may be, unless she wants to change, I think that makes life pretty damn hard. So generally, we get brought in by the person who is the boss of whatever level in the organisation, because there needs to be a realization, there needs to be buy-in from the top.
Yeah.
If the boss doesn't want things to be different, then you're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah. Okay, I've got some rapid fire questions for you. What drives you every day?
So I want my business to be a good business. I want we measure a few different things. Measure whether we make a difference. And I really want to do good stuff for our clients. I really want to be highly rated with what we do. We've got a finance metric, which I'm not particularly interested in. We've got to be profitable. And then, we've got to be profitable, but money's not what motivates me. And then our third goal, which again really motivates me, is we talk about people that join lives happy, being engaged in our business, wanting to be part of the team. And the things so kind of from a business thing, I want to do great work for clients. I want us to do great work for clients, and I want everybody in the business to be really happy and engaged with where they are. Those two things are important to me.
Okay, what's your genius?
I've been really struggling with that one. I think once upon a time I was quite good at rowing, but other than that,
do you think it was that you were good at rowing, or do you think that you could just force yourself to do stuff every day, even though you didn't want to?
I think I was pretty bloody single-minded. I think that I'm not necessarily a keen sports person, but I found something that I could do, and I could do it day in, day out with a level of focus and a level of resilience. I think I'm probably pretty consistent. I think I'm pretty open to feedback, and I have a desire to be better than I was yesterday. And I think those things probably stand me in pretty good stead.
And I think you said you dropped out of university. Did you go back and finish it off? You just no. Didn't seem the need.
I frankly wasn't very interested anyway. I mean, I couldn't be asked.
And we were talking before we were recording about dyslexia. Did that make you not a keen student?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a particularly keen student. I kind of struggled with English, my reading and writing and spelling and stuff through my early teen years was really poor. I bumped into an old English teacher a few years ago, so kind of randomly on pavement, and he nearly fell over when I said I'd written a book that sold about 100,000 copies. And he couldn't believe it. So English definitely wasn't my thing. I kind of maths and stuff, but also my last 2 years at school, I thought, yeah, well, lots of people leave school with A levels. Not many people leave schools as a junior world champion, and that's what I want to do. And the fact is, all the people who leave school as a junior world champion also leave with A levels, but I kind of didn't, yeah, I wasn't that keen on studying.
What unpopular opinion do you hold?
Well, it kind of depends who I'm popular with. So that feedback is a gift. It's a good thing. We should be more open and honest with each other. A lot of people don't really like that.
We almost teach it. We almost, if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything. It's almost sort of taught out of us. In a British way, I often find as I go Eastern Europe, the Dutch and Eastern Europeans, it becomes much easier for them to be black and white and just say how it is.
And then if you go further east, then it becomes even harder. So, there are all sorts of cultural bits, but being open and giving feedback is an unpopular opinion, I think.
What's the most significant risk you've taken?
Jumping out of a plane with a parachute. I mean, that seems, I don't know. Starting a business with someone I didn't really know. I mean, is that,
Yeah.
The business I've got now, dropping out of university to try and be a professional athlete when there was no money in it. And, that was I think there've been all sorts of different risks, but so much of it is down to perception.
Yeah.
As to, everybody perceives risks differently. And there are some things I've done that people have gone, oh my God, that's a risk. And I hadn't actually noticed it was a risk. So, and there are other things that I just sure as hell wouldn't do. So I think it's, perception.
What's the most recent skill or thing you've learned?
So at the moment, so this is slightly random. I'm doing a cross-country ski marathon in March. So I had my first lesson my first cross-country ski lesson a few weeks ago, which was actually on those ridiculous little short rollerblade skis around the park. It looked like a bunch of total nutter muppets. It was definitely a new skill. It was so that was something totally different and new. I think there are also areas where I'm improving my knowledge and skill most days. I had a call earlier, just before this actually, where I kind of learnt a whole load, but in terms of something totally different and random, cross-country skiing on roller skates.
Fab. Okay. And is the marathon in aid of something, or is it just sort of single-minded personal challenge?
So a group of friends, we've decided we kind of want to do some sort of challenge each year. So we kind of rode around Venice a couple of years ago. This year we're doing this ski marathon. The idea is to do something together, do something which is a new skill for most of us, do something that is kind of challenging in a beautiful place, having fun.
Sounds good. What's your biggest source of inspiration?
Generally, it's people who are a bit better than me. So when I was rowing, I wasn't looking at the people who were at the top winning everything. I was looking at the person who was one step ahead of me going, if they can do that, I reckon I can do that. I reckon I can do that bit. Seeing when I speak to people who are running businesses, a bit bigger than mine, when I see people who are doing stuff a bit better, I find that kind of really, I find it relatable and really inspiring. Yeah. I look at the chief executive, some massive organization, and go, oh, that's pretty amazing, but it's definitely not me. Whereas the people who are doing stuff that's close to me and better, I find that quite inspirational because I kind of connect to that and I think I can have a crack.
You can see yourself reeling them in.
Yeah.
And overtaking. Okay. And what's the worst business advice you've ever received?
So I remember kind of my first job post rowing, I was thinking of leaving and I kind of, when I met up with my dad, I went, what are you thinking? He, we spoke for about an hour. And at the end he went, actually, what the hell am I doing? Because he said, I was in the army for 28 years. I was in a civil servant for 18 years. I've got no idea about a free market commercial world that you're working in. So actually his advice was quite good, but it was quite, at the end he just went, what the hell am I talking about? I don't, you're in a totally different world. So I thought that was kind of quite good.
Very good. And other than getting a copy of Will It Make the Boat Go Faster, what else have you enjoyed, found inspirational, recommend to people?
I really like Matthew Snyder's books. I think they're really good. Black Box Thinking Back. So I've kind of really enjoyed his books. At the moment, I also really like history books, actually. So James Holland, I've kind of listened to quite a few of his books, which I've kind of really enjoyed. I kind of switch between business books and history books with the odd kind of rubbishy fiction in there as well.
What's the most recent history book you've read or listened to?
Well, at the moment, and I listen rather than read. At the moment, I'm listening to Casino, which is Battle of Monte Casino in 1924.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah. Have you read it?
I listened to it a couple of weeks ago, and God, what's he called? The pub landlord. Yes. The guy who's the narrator.
Yes. He reads quite a lot of James Holland's books.
Yeah. Did James Holland write the one about the tank regiment? The
Sherwood Rangers.
Yes.
Sherwood Rangers. Yes, he did.
Same narrator as well. And that's really good as well. That entire, just brutal. What I love about it is it's not just, it's the both sides, it's the personal letters, diaries, and it's just that. So the whole, for those people who haven't listened, it's not like a military history from a perspective of this is what happened. I mean, obviously he talks about the units and stuff, but it's written through the lives of, the whole book is through the lives of individual people, which is fascinating.
Yeah. It's diaries from generals, private soldiers, British, German, American, Italian families. He kind of looks at all sorts of different points of view and pulls it into a really compelling story. I love the books. I think they're really good.
Yeah, very good. Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. Thank you for coming on.
It's been great talking to you, Dominic. Thank you very much.